So today we're going to be talking about solving linear equations. And we've already done a little bit of this year, but we're going to get into it much deeper. There we go. Let's complete everything. Solving linear equations. So you guys have seen one-step equations such as this. X plus 1 equals 2, or 2x equals 6, right? And we learned that if we separate these and make this this imaginary mirror, that we can use inverse operations, which basically means to do the opposite of everything that's attached to x. Well, right now it says x plus 1. If I want to solve for x, which is my goal, I need to do the following, which is subtract 1, subtract 1. 1 minus 1 gives me 0. I'm just left with x. And then 2 minus 1 is 1. And x equals 1, which makes sense because if x is 1, then 1 plus 1 equals 2. Now in the second problem, this is a little different. Now we're actually multiplying 2 times x, which equals 6. So we have to do the opposite of multiplication, or the inverse of multiplication, which is division. If I divide, these cancel out. I'm just left with x equals 3, which makes sense because 2 times 3 equals 6. Okay, I can always check my answers when I'm solving linear equations by plugging back in what I got for x. Then in September, we talked about two-step equations. Looked a little different, something like 2x plus 3 equals 13. In this case, we said that we were going to use inverse operations again, but this time we were going to work from what was furthest from x, which was either addition or subtraction, first, and then get rid of any multiplication and division. So right now it says 2x plus 3 equals 13. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this addition plus 3. Well, the inverse of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 3. And since I did it on the left side of the mirror, it's going to be reflected on the right. These cancel out. I'm now left with 2x equals 13 minus 3 is 10. And again, I've got 2 times x equals 10. Well, the inverse of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide. And since I did it on the left side, I'm going to do it on the right side. And my answer ends up being x equals 5. And again, I can plug in x equals 5 for x, solve this, and see if my answer matches. So 2 times 5 plus 3 equals 13. Order of operations says to do the multiplication first. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 equals 13. 13 equals 13. This checks. So by now, everyone should be able to do 1- and 2-step equations. That's not what this lesson is. We're going to be moving forward and doing a little bit more, okay? So, if I move on, this is what happens. What if, and we're not only going to be dealing with positive numbers, we're going to be dealing with negative numbers as well. if I had the following problem? Negative 2 times x minus 3 equals 18. Well, the first thing that I would do in this case is distribute. Distribute the 2 to x, distribute the negative 2 to 3, and this is what happens when I use the distributive property with the negative 2. I get negative 2x, and there's a minus sign here, so I'm going to bring it over. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6 equals 18. I'm going to rewrite this because I have minus and negative, and we know when we subtract a negative, it's the same thing as adding a positive. This cleans up things for me. Okay, it's up to you if you want to do that. Now there's nothing left to clean up. Okay, there's nothing left to simplify, so now I have to solve for x. So I'm going to make my little mirror. I see my plus 6. I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to go minus 6 on the left side, minus 6 on the right side. These 6's cancel out. I'm left with negative 2x equals 18 minus 6 is 12. And since I have a negative 2 times x, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. And that gives me x equals negative 6. Now, remember, we're solving for x. We are not solving for negative x. So if you got here and you divided by 2 instead of negative 2, then you would have gotten negative x, or the opposite of x, equals 6. Okay? This is not a valid answer. We're solving for x. So from here, we need to get rid of this negative by multiplying both sides by negative 1. Negative x times negative 1 is x, and 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. Okay? So this ends up being my answer again. I will not accept this as an answer. If you stop here, then you are going to have points taken off. Okay? Please make sure that you solve all the way to x, because that's what we're looking for, the value of x, not the opposite of x. So again, when I said that the lesson wasn't on solving two-step equations, that's okay. You're still going to have two-step equations in your problem. But what happens if I have multiple x's in my problem? What happens here? So here's what happens when you have multiple x's. What I want you to do right now is just look at the left side. Okay? We're just going to be looking here. Notice we have terms that have x's, and we have terms that do not have x's. When we have two types of terms, those with variables, those without variables, and there's multiple of them, we can combine like terms, okay? We can combine like terms. Now, what are like terms? Well, notice what I circled in red. Negative 2x and negative 3x. They both are terms that have an x in them, okay? And just an x. So I can actually combine those. If I have negative 2x's and then another negative 3x's, I now have a total of negative 5x's, okay? And remember, I got this because I took my negative 2x's and my minus 3x's and I combined them. Negative 2x and negative 3x or minus 3x gives me negative 5x. And then I've got my plus 8 and plus 7. Well, if I have a plus 8 and a plus 7, if I combine those, I now have plus 15. Here's a positive 8 and a positive 7. That's what the pluses tell me. So I now have a plus 15. And I combine those like terms to get negative 5x plus 15, and I can just bring down the equals 30. Guess what? You have another two-step equation now. Bring down my imaginary mirror. Remember, you start with any addition or subtraction first. Since it says plus 15, I'm going to do minus 15 because that's the inverse. These cancel out. I've got 15 equals, just realized the colors are off. 15 equals negative 5x. Now I need to get rid of that negative 5, and since it's multiplication, we're going to do the inverse, which is division, and we're dividing by a negative 5 so that we go straight to x, and x equals negative 3. And that's my answer. And I can do a brief little check here if I wanted to, okay? I'm going to do it right here. Negative 2 times, remember x is negative 3, negative 3 plus 8 minus 3 times negative 3 plus 7 equals 30. Well, negative 2 times negative 3 is 6 plus 8 minus 3 times 3, or sorry, 3 times negative 3 is negative 9 plus 7, and all that equals 30. Six plus 8 is 14. Minus negative 9 is the same thing as plus 9 plus 7. 14 plus 9 is 23. 23 plus 7 is 30. And since 30 equals 30, this checks, and we are happy. So I'm going to give you a problem to do. Actually, I'm going to give you a few problems to do, and I want you to solve them for me. So work on these problems for me. You can pause the video, and then once you are done, you can check your answers. All right, so let's do each of these separately. First problem was negative 6x minus 8 equals 40. Bring down my mirror. I can add 8 to both sides. This now gives me negative 6x equals 48. Divide both sides by negative 6. And I get x equals negative 8. Okay? Again, you can pause the video to make sure that you can see the work. Let's go to the next one. The next one said negative 7 times x plus 2 equals 35. If I distribute negative 7 into parentheses, I get negative 7x minus 14 equals 35. And now I'm going to bring down my mirror. The inverse of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add 14, add 14. These cancel out. I get negative 7x equals 49. The inverse of multiplying by negative 7 is dividing by negative 7. So my answer equals x equals negative 7. Because 49 divided by negative 7 is negative 7. And then finally, the last one, we had negative 4x minus 10 plus 3x minus 27 equals 121. Now remember, in this situation, I want to take all my like terms and combine them. So I'm going to circle all my x terms, and I'm going to make sure that I take what's in front of it too, if it's a minus or a plus, because that's going to tell me if it's positive or negative. And then, you know what, I'm just going to underline the other like terms. So the x's are circled, the non-x's are underlined. Right now, negative 4x plus positive 3x gives me negative x, and then negative 10 and negative 27 gives me negative 37. So I put down a minus 37. Now I can solve this. So where do I go from here? I'm going to add 37, add 37. These cancel out. This gives me 158. Oops, that's a lot of 5s. 158. And it's also in the wrong color. 158 for the 15th time. The opposite of x equals negative 158. So now I'm going to multiply or divide by negative 1. Negative 1 times x gives me, or times negative x gives me positive x. Negative 1 times 158 gives me negative 158. And that is my answer. That's it for this video. We're going to move into fractions in the next video. It's going to be a lot of fun. Alrighty. Thanks.